Hey guys, what's going on? Jacob here. So last time we went over a couple of advanced PHP items. Today we're going to talk a little bit more about arrays and also talk about form data and how to parse it and how to do something with it. Again, it's going to take some work to learn, but it's going to be super cool when it all comes together. So let's get started. I already talked a little bit about arrays in our first PHP video last week. As a refresher, you can create an array like this and pull a value from an array like this. You can also create associative arrays like this and use this to pull a value from that array. But today we're going to talk about what more you can do with arrays, since they're a vital part of programming. We'll talk about how to count the items in the array, sort arrays, add and remove items from the arrays, and merge arrays. Counting the number of items in an array in PHP is pretty simple. All you need to do is use the count function, and then you'll put the array as the parameter for the function. The count function, returns the number of items in the array. This is useful if you're using the for loop with an array, or just need the number of items for something else. Another thing that you'll probably want to do is to sort an array that you have in one way or another. Maybe you have numbers in a list and you want to find the median value of those numbers. Fortunately, there are ways to do that in PHP and they're all pretty simple. So let's check them out. There are 6 default ways to sort a function, all of which require you just to call one PHP function. The basic sort function sorts an array in ascending order, meaning that it will sort A to Z or 0, 1, 2, 3, etc. And rsort sorts the array in descending order. For associative arrays, asort sorts the array in ascending order based on the value, while ksort sorts the array in ascending order by the key. For the opposite, arsort sorts the array in descending order by the value, and ksort sorts the array in descending order by the key. But maybe you want the order of your array to be random, like you're picking names out of a hat. For that, you'll need the shuffle function. Like the count and sort functions, all you need to do is add the array as the parameter, and PHP will shuffle up that array. So now you have an array, but you want to add an item to that array. How do you do that? In PHP, it's pretty simple. We're going to use the array push function to add one or more items to our array. This accepts the array that we're going to add the items to as the first parameter, and then any items we're going to add to the array after that. The opposite of that function is the array splice function, although this is a bit trickier. You'll first need at least 3 parameters for this function. The first is the array that we are removing items from. The next is the index that we're starting from to remove items. Again, remember that array indices start at 0 and not 1. Next, we'll need to set the number of items that we're removing. If you put -1 here, all of the rest of the items will be removed. Finally, an optional parameter at the end is an array that will replace the removed items. So if we want to remove the second item in this array, we'll run the array splice function like this. Finally, let's try to add 2 arrays together. Unlike numbers, you can't do this with a plus sign. Instead, you need to use the array merge function. This function does exactly what you think it would do. All you need to do is supply it with 2 or more arrays, and it will merge them all together. Finally, let's discuss forms. This is one of the best parts about PHP, and it's really cool to add this functionality to your web page. Getting the data from the form is fairly easy, as you'll see, but doing stuff with that data is where your imagination can go wild. As I mentioned back in the HTML video on forms, there are 2 ways to send data through a form: post and get. Get sends the information through the URL, so when you set the method to get and hit submit, the URL changes to reflect your form data. This is great if the data isn't sensitive, like maybe sorting a table or moving on to a second page in a list. But for the most part, you're going to want to use post. This sends the data through the page headers, which isn't shown in the browser. Now, I do want to note that just because you send the data through post doesn't mean it's completely secure. You'll still need to validate and sanitize that data, which we'll cover down the road. Plus, you'll need other things to make sure it's completely secure. But no matter how you send that data, using it in PHP is basically the same. For get, the data is stored in the get variable, and for post, the data is stored in the post variable. Both variables are essentially associative arrays, and you'll be able to call an individual field by using the field name that you assign to it in HTML as the array key. So you have this form and someone submitted some data in the form, and now you want to show that back to the user in the form. How do you do this? Well, actually, it's pretty simple. For text inputs and the like, you just use the post or get variable, then the array key for the field and the value attribute. It's basically also the same for text areas. For select dropdowns, however, there's an extra step required. You'll need to check each option to see if the value of that option equals the value of the submitted field. So you'll need to set up an if conditional for each option. If the two values are the same, then you'll output the selected equals selected attribute for the option. Checkboxes and radio buttons work almost identical. However, the attribute that you'll use instead is checked equals checked. Finally, you might want to do something with that data. Maybe you want to add that data to a database. Well, we're not quite to SQL and databases quite yet. But if we wanted to do something like that, we would write our code like this. You could also send it somewhere via email with the mail function. However, I would be a little bit selective about using this function. Well, that's all for today. Next time we'll talk about multi-dimensional arrays and dates. In the meantime, if you have any questions over what we went over today, please leave them down in the comments below and I'll do my best to answer them. But until next time, good luck and happy coding.